Scott. This week we're checking out a first-person puzzle game, Discolored 2 on PC. We're getting an early preview of this game. It's currently in a demo right now, and we actually got the chance to check it out. This is a very unique kind of puzzle escape room style game. I've played a few of these first-person puzzlers before, and honestly, they're usually a pretty good time. This one is definitely an interesting approach as far as how they deliver the story with this. Essentially, the idea is that the colors in the world have been taken away by this evil agency, and now it's our job to try to restore them in this obscure manner that we go about in this game. Honestly, I actually had a pretty interesting / good time getting into this one. What did you think first jumping into Discolored 2?
I thought the storyline kind of thread throughout it is very silly, but it's silly enough to work. And it does the job just fine of kind of stringing together this narrative and putting you into situations where you're restoring color. And that's a very interesting mechanic because you literally are restoring color. Yeah. You'll go into a place that's all completely gray scale, and then by the time you leave, it's very fluorescent color and a lot of strong greens where I was. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get very far because this has a lot of difficulty to it. Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter of can I, land headshots, can I move quick enough like normal first-person games. This is a very slow, kind of methodical. You're observing the area around you and kind of discovering what you can interact with and if that helps or if it hurts. And it's very not explained to you. There is a hint button, which I actually wasn't aware of. So I got stuck very early on. But I think you had a little bit more progress than me. What did you think about it?
Well, I did find the hint button in the menu. There is actually a nice little hint feature, which I did use a few times, I'll be honest, because this game doesn't hold your hand. When you first get into it, there is a basic idea of what's going on, but outside of how to solve these puzzles and where you're kind of going after you solve these puzzles is the biggest mystery here. It's kind of what kind of keeps you questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it the entire time you're playing this. I mean, we know we're trying to restore colors, but the puzzles aren't very descriptive. It's a lot of trial and error, I found, but that's the style of these games, right? They don't want to hold your hand and make it easy so you just fly through it. They want it to be challenging and kind of an interesting, kind of make you think outside the box a lot of times when it comes to solving some of these puzzles. We pick up items along the way that we do find that we use to solve puzzles. We combine them in certain ways. That's actually one thing I did notice is the inventory system was a little bit janky for me. I found when you open up your inventory menu, when you want to combine two things, or you maybe want to take an item and use it somewhere in the world, if you misclick it or you're clicking in a spot that isn't where it's supposed to interact, it closes the menu and you have to reopen it. And it's a little cumbersome. Again, we said this is a game preview. It is a demo. This game isn't slated to come out till 2023, so there's still a lot of time to work on some of these minor bugs and issues like that. I mean, overall, the gameplay was pretty smooth. We're not getting, a ton of detail in this environment and world. It's very, like I said, at the beginning, it's very monochromatic. We're black and white. We do bring some colors into there, but we're not looking at, high textures and anything like that. It's a lot of smooth surfaces and, but it does this game the justice it requires for, what we're trying to do here. And honestly, I did have a tough time with some of these puzzles. I did feel fairly rewarded once I got through some of them, but I got stuck to the point where I actually had some issues firing the game back up. I took a break playing from my first playthrough, and then I went to go play the game again, and when I fired up the game, it came up to the main menu, and I wasn't able to click on anything with my mouse. I even tried if there was a controller, but I don't actually believe this game has any controller support. I couldn't cursor in anything. I deleted the game, I re-downloaded, and I was still proceeding to have some of these issues, and I know you had a couple issues yourself.
Yeah, no, it is quite fortunate actually that the game is slated for a 2023 release, because I think there's some stuff under the hood that needs to happen. Your issue shouldn't happen with any video game really, and on re-download, that makes me wonder, is it your hardware? But how could that be?
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating that way, but my only bug really was when, at the very beginning, if you miss up the timing of that first little spinner bar, if you don't get it in the right area, one of the bad guys kind of appears to you and it's game over. But as soon as I hit that game over screen, it just closed on me. The game was just done. but I was able to restart and kind of get where I wanted to go and re-examine the different rooms and get through it. But it's so simplified visually, but complicated mechanically.
Yeah.
And you're right about this kind of interacting with items, because I found myself walking around with a 2x4, just kind of trying to slap it anywhere. But that was just out of desperation, because eventually, you're going to get stuck and not know what to do whatsoever. But when you triumph through that, that's the hook of the game. That's what's going to bring you back in and get you through the next difficult part. And it's interesting because there is a little bit of a simplifier. This feels like a point-and-click game, and you can actually bring it up as a point-and-click game. And I thought that was really cool because you can flip between the two.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes helps you interact with the environment. It doesn't highlight what you can play with, but instead of opening and closing items, it just lets you kind of tinker around. But I wish there was a little bit more of an action, a little bit more of avoiding certain enemies. It's very basic, but there could have been somewhat of a stealth element. But not every game needs that. So then again, it stands on its own. What it is actually quite interesting, and that's the point they're really hammering home. You mentioned escape rooms, and it makes me realize that I'm doomed if I'm in an escape room.
Well, Scott, we come to the end of our time with Discolored 2. This was a demo again. I just want to reiterate, so there are some things that definitely need to be looked at and changed as this kind of game goes forward. But if you're going to give this one a recommend or not recommend, what are you going to give it, Scott?
Oh, I'm very torn, just as you. Everything about the game is very attractive to me. The idea of puzzles being actually difficult, actually solvable, and then you feel that triumph from it. It's a very satisfying loop that I think this game could really nail down. But the issues that we've experienced with the game just absolutely crashing, basically deleting itself off of your system. And my issue about 8 minutes in with an instant crash, well, that makes me think that this game does need a lot more time in the oven. So it's difficult for me to recommend it now in its current state. But I think, given some time and the release window being in 2023, I think it's worth circling back around on this one. If you're interested at all, then I recommend soon.
You know what? I'm right there with you, Scott. I feel the same way. There's things about this game that I did enjoy, and it definitely, as it being a puzzle / escape room style game, I found that mechanic very interesting, and I like solving puzzles, and I like them being difficult, just like you. And this game is kind of nailing that right on the head. But again, I had to delete my game and reinstall it, and I'm still having issues, starting it up. And it's just, again, it's just in a state where maybe we need to wait a few more months. Maybe the next demo that comes out is going to be what we're looking for as far as not really having these game-breaking style glitches or issues. So honestly, I'm going to give this one a not recommend right now, but in a few months, this one definitely, like you said, is one to circle back to.